Hey everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Drunken Library. And today we are filming the first of our hopefully 12, possibly less,
Yep.
monthly wrap-ups. So we're going to be doing a January wrap-up because it is February 1st. By the time this gets posted, it will be February 2nd.
Yep.
Because I'm not posting this at 11 p.m.
Nope. And we used to do these, and then we didn't.
And then we did one for like 3 months, and then we were like, we'll start doing them again, and then we didn't.
No.
So basically, we're just going to talk about the books we read in January. You guys know how wrap-ups work. You've been on BookTube probably more than we have in the last year, so, you know.
Yep. And we're not at all drunk.
It's fine.
Okay, we're a little drunk. It is a drunken library.
Right.
And this might be our 4.5 bottle of wine. Whatever.
The other one wasn't quite a half. Not quite a half.
Okay, there was a bottle that was open.
Yeah.
And then there were 3 more bottles. And now we're on the 4th bottle. That's the 5th bottle.
That's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Math is stupid.
Math is hard. So, we've got some books that we read in the month of January. I read many. Amber read some.
I read some. I also do not have nearly as many on my list as you do.
Our reading goals are very different for this
Yes.
year. My reading goal on Goodreads is set to 100 books this year.
Did I set mine at 52?
Yes.
Okay.
So, one per week. So, you're pretty on track.
I'm pretty on track. I've got an ebook, a physical book, and an audiobook going. And they're both, I'm pretty advanced in all 3 of those.
Yeah,
so.
and you've got 3 finished, is
Yeah.
it? Yeah. So, like, you're pretty on track.
Mm-hmm.
I set my Goodreads goal at 100, and I read 10 this month, or last month.
Yeah.
In January.
This past one,
Right.
for which we are making
one that we're
video.
making a video about. So, I'm doing well, but I set a lofty goal. So,
We're both pretty on track. Sam just has more each month.
yeah,
in
so I
reflection of that.
just have to be a little zestier with my reading.
Mm-hmm. We are both also doing the Book Riot Read Harder challenge this year.
Yeah. I will mention the books that I finished that do fit a Read Harder prompt because I have some in the 10 that I read this month. Spencer, calm your shit.
This is all over those records, though.
His little kitty titties are out of control, man. They need to be hakuna'd, those tatas. But, yeah, so I guess do you want me to do, like, 3, and then you do 1, and then...
Let's just do half and half.
Okay.
Half and half, and then half and half. I'll do 2 and then 1, or 1 and then 2, and
Right.
who the fuck
Okay,
knows?
so I'll do 5. It's whatever, I'll start.
Yep.
I'll get this fucking party started.
Woo!
Alright, so the first book I read this year is The Devil Wears Prada by Lauren Weisberger. This book is in our first ever book haul.
Oh, shit!
True story. I can link that shit down below when we edit the video. We're not going to edit the video, but I can put it in our playlist of videos that we mentioned in this. But yeah, it was in our first ever haul video. We bought it at a book sale in October 2014. And it's been sitting on my shelves unread since then. I love the movie with Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep. The book is not as good.
Whoa.
So, like, it was fine, but the protagonist kind of annoyed me. And
That happens sometimes.
the antagonist is not Meryl Streep, so...
If it's ever anybody versus Meryl Streep,
Meryl
ever,
Streep wins.
Yeah.
Period.
Did you know they're
End
making
of
a Mamma
discussion.
Mia 2?
I saw that. I have mixed feelings.
I know, but I'm still gonna fucking see it.
I'll probably see it, but I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't know how I feel about it,
But yeah.
but like, I'm excited anyway. I'm excited, but I don't have a lot of hopes. Does that make
Right.
sense?
I get you. I
Yeah.
get you. But yeah, so Devil Wears Prada, one of the rare instances where I will say that the movie was better, and I feel like I would have felt that way no matter which one of them I had gotten to first.
Oh shit.
It's just not the best. It was fine. It was entertaining. It was like a good New Year's Eve into New Year's Day read, which is what I did with it, so.
It's a good time.
Yeah. Alright, next one I finished was Talking as Fast as I Can, From Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls and Everything in Between by Lauren Graham. Amber bought me this for my birthday last year. Yes. My birthday is at the end of January. You guys probably don't know. It was actually last week. But Amber bought this for me for my birthday last year. And then it sat on my shelf, even though I wanted to get to it, but I was in the middle of like 56 other things and then didn't get to it. And then this year it actually fit one of my Read Harder prompts.
Woo!
It actually fit a couple of them, but I counted it for the one that was read a one-sitting book because I was able to get through this pretty quick in one day. I listened to part of it on audiobook at work, and then I got home and finished it in the physical book. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's really funny. It's really cute. Lauren Graham's the best.
I might have to read it.
You'd like it.
Yeah?
She's very sassy.
I never watched anything else that she's in except for Gilmore Girls, and then...
I hadn't either.
Okay.
But you'd appreciate it. It's a lot of Gilmore Girls focus, but it's also her, like, upbringing and getting into acting and, like, that kind of stuff. So,
well,
and then she does talk about parenthood and, like, meeting her man friend who she met on the set of Parenthood. And now I want to watch it, and I think it's on Netflix, so I probably will do that.
I don't have Netflix anymore.
I mean, we have Netflix.
Okay, fair enough.
So, all right. Book number 3 that I read is my favorite. The Ghastly Crumb Tinies by Edward Gorey. Anybody who's familiar with Edward Gorey is familiar with this book. If you're not familiar with Edward Gorey, I'm very sorry for you. This is one of my favorite, like, little rhyming books of all time. Like, it's not really a kid's book, but that's the closest classification for it. Like, it's really short. It's literally 26 pages long.
And it's a little fucked up.
It's a lot fucked up, honestly.
It's significantly fucked up, I tried to sugarcoat it, and it didn't work.
This is an alphabet book, and each letter is representative of a child's name, and each of those children dies in a horrible way. If you have not read this, you can find a PDF of it on the internet. I'm not going to do a whole thing. Maybe we'll do a reading with this one at some point.
Ooh,
that could be fun. I bet Teresa would be into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really good, and you should let that happen in your lives if you haven't already. I would go into more detail, but it's an alphabet book. Like, what detail am I going to go into? All right. So the next one I read, I don't have a physical copy of. I listened to the audiobook. It is called Facing the Music and Living to Talk About It by Nick Carter of Backstreet Boys fame.
Hey.
I love the Backstreet Boys to this day, and when I was a youth, I loved Nick Carter. He was my Backstreet Boy of choice.
Mine was AJ.
As I've gotten older, I'm like kind of Team Howie, not gonna lie.
You know that he did a couple duets with one of my Japanese artists that I like?
I do know that. It was Jin Akanishi, and it was on the CD. Well, there was one, I thought.
It wasn't Jin Akanishi. It was Shirota Yu.
I could have sworn there was one with him on that Jin Akanishi CD that you played for like a million years when we were carpooling.
No, he was Jason Derulo.
Jason Derulo.
That's the one.
Either way, but I do know because you mentioned to me that he did the thing.
Yep.
Anyway, but I'm kind of Team Howie now as an adult because he's very attractive. He's gotten more attractive with time. Also, I have different taste as I'm older. But I was very Team Nick when I was a youth.
I was about Nick for like 2 seconds, and then I was like, but AJ though. And then I'm just kind of stuck there.
But, like, the book, I honestly don't really recommend, even if you are Team Backstreet Boys or Team Nick Carter, which I am both of those things, at least a little. It was, like, a little preachy, and I'm not into that, because he's struggled a lot with, like, drug and alcohol abuse, and, like, I support his personal recovery. I think it's great that he's found an outlet and that he wants to help other people. I don't necessarily struggle with those things. Like, I know this is the Drunken Library and we drink, but, like, this is honestly when we drink.
Yeah. Like, we drink hard.
When we drink.
When we drink.
But, like...
But we drink
pretty much
filming.
Yeah, only when we film.
And like occasionally other times, but
like it's just not a struggle that I've personally dealt with. And it felt like he was like kind of judging people who drink casually. And it was just like not. He did mention at one point, he's like, I realized it's possible to drink responsibly, and if you can, that's great. But it was like very much like a sentence in passing. And that was kind of like, okay, whatever. This is 6 hours of you saying like, I did dumb things when I was on drugs, and like, we get it. So I like.
Well, neither of us have done drugs.
And if it's a struggle that you're going through, it would honestly probably be really helpful to just like hear from somebody who's gone through that also. But if it's not a struggle that you're having, it's like a little more self-help and a little less autobiography.
Okay.
And it's like kind of, it wasn't the right fit for me. But I did use it for my Read Harder challenge as my Read a Celebrity memoir.
And you used the Lauren Graham as your
for one sitting book, yes.
Yeah. Because I don't think you mentioned that.
I did.
You?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've had 4 bottles of wine, which means 2 each at least.
And then I'm gonna stop here and let you go, because this isn't quite halfway, but the rest of them kind of go together,
right.
Except for the last one. So,
all right. Should I do 2 or 1?
I do 2. Keep it zesty. Why not?
Woo. Okay. So, according to my Goodreads, this year I have finished 3 books so far. 2 of them have been audiobooks, and 1 was a physical book. And the physical book was teeny tiny, and the audiobooks are both really fucking long. So, the first book that I finished this year was the audiobook for Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Yeah.
I have a lot of feelings about Hyperion.
I have several feelings about it. And, like, because it's supposed to be set up like a sci-fi Canterbury Tales, right?
I love sci-fi. I love the Canterbury Tales. I did not love Hyperion.
It didn't. Well, I'm not as familiar with the Canterbury Tales, for one. I am familiar enough with the concept, and I know that I've read some of the stories, but it was in high school. So
that's
I don't
probably
remember the
enough,
details.
honestly. It's probably enough to get what they were going for.
Right. And as it was happening, I was like, okay, I can see how it's structured similarly. There's like a frame narrative, and then
it's like there's one
stories.
female character, so yeah, that's a Canterbury Tales thing also.
Okay. And like there was,
and like one of her stories was like basically about sex, which is also kind of similar to like the one female character in here.
Okay. I was mostly in like the sex stories. I was like the second guy. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, that was really weird. But like you will remember like the one female character, it's like her story wasn't even about sex, but like somehow it was. It was like, I can't remember specifically. I mean, I read it like a year ago.
I know.
But
I read it like a couple
but it was
weeks
like
ago,
it was like about
remember.
her journey into becoming a badass or whatever, and like it like the first half was like, but she's hot, and like all the other characters the whole entire book were just like, look at her boobs. Yeah. Like the whole time. And it's like, God fucking damn it, stop. Stop. This is not progressing the story at all.
Yeah. And like there are parts that were really good. Like the first story that they did, I really, 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 really enjoyed. The frame narrative, I feel, could have been really interesting.
It just wasn't. It didn't work as well in execution.
No. And like by the end of it, I was just like, I don't know if it's because I'm listening to it and not reading it physically with my eyeballs.
I did both, and no.
And another part of me was too just like, I don't know if it's because I haven't read a ton of sci-fi, although I have been reading more sci-fi.
Again, I have, and no.
Yeah, and there was just parts of it where I was like, I really, really, really like this part, and then there's another part where I'm like, I don't understand why this is significant, and there's other parts where I'm like, I don't even understand what's happening.
I felt that way
right
for
now.
less. Honestly, my favorite story was the Scholars with like the daughter aging in reverse.
That was that one and the natives
So
one.
it's like
the first story, and then
that was my
daughter
other
aging over
favorite.
his- Yeah, those are my two favorite stories.
And they were the ones that were best told. They were
Yep.
the ones that sucked you in the most.
Yep.
And the rest of them, it was kind of like, okay. The poet was like, okay.
Yeah, he felt very beat poety, and
Which I can appreciate as a person who likes the beat poets, but like it was also just kind of like, I give a fuck about you.
I'm reading a collection of poems right now from Charles Bukowski, and they're like, I bought the book because I read the first poem. Whenever I'm contemplating buying a book of poetry, I read the first poem, and if I dig it, I buy the book, and if I don't, then I don't. And I dug the first one, and there's a couple in there, and there's some lines that I've been really into, but some of his stuff, I'm just like, okay, this doesn't feel like poetry so much as like lyrical prose. And I'm just kind of like, maybe that's not such a big difference to some people, but I approach poetry in a very specific way, and it doesn't vibe with how I approach poetry. That could just be me, but whatever. So I just, the poet guy, I'm like, okay. And like some of the stuff was like, yeah, this is very lyrical. This is very interesting. This is very beautiful. But other parts, I'm just like, what? And so I ultimately rated it like 3.5 stars, but I think I went with 3. I went with 3 on Goodreads.
I went with 3 on Goodreads and said it was 3.5, but it was actually more like probably 3.25, which is why I went to 3. Because, like, you know.
I just really liked those 2 stories.
Those
I don't like
two
those
stories-
2 stories a lot.
Those 2 stories were really good, but like the rest of it was just kind of like, I have
Yeah.
a lot of feelings. I don't like how women were treated throughout most of the book, particularly the one present female character. I didn't care for it. The other stories were not engaging. I wanted them to be. I wanted them to be so bad because I love sci-fi and I love the Canterbury Tales and I love the idea of this book, but it just like didn't do anything for me.
Well, and like even the way that they treated women, it's like, yeah, they objectified women a lot. But you have to understand the genre. You have to understand the time. Which
It was
you know,
1990.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough
wasn't.
of the time.
That's fair. But it's like, well, and to be fair, like when he wrote it, he probably grew up on a certain type of sci-fi genre.
He probably
So-
did, but at the time the genre was
It
kind
should
of
have
changing and
shifted
it
a
should have
little.
shifted a little.
And so I get that.
But it's not so much that it was just like, because I read a lot of sci-fi and I've accepted that that's like kind of a thing
Right.
that exists. But in
'Cause
this
I've
book in
encountered it
particular,
some stuff.
in this book in
Yeah.
particular, it bothered me, and I think it was because they were trying to present her as like a viable, strong character,
But
then they didn't treat her that way.
No.
And
They
like in
didn't.
other sci-fi books, it's like the women are there, but they're like not super prevalent, or like they're not trying to treat them one way, but then actually treating them another way. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like the way it was like, we're trying to present her as a strong, badass female who could like murder any of these dudes, but then
also sex.
also sex, and let's talk about her boobs for several chapters.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't gel right, and I didn't care for it. Sorry, this is like your part of the thing, but I have a lot of feelings about Hyperion.
No, it's fine. I don't remember a lot of it, and I read it I finished it like 3 weeks ago.
It made me really upset.
I was very...
And I like the parts I liked, I really liked, but the
Yeah.
parts I didn't like made me really upset.
Yeah. I wanted
And I think it's because
to
I'm
like it
so
too.
attached to the genre and because I'm so attached to the source material.
Well, it's like, even like when I read Tarzan, you know, like that was... It's not really sci-fi. That was more like... It's not really fantasy, though, either. It was just weird. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. The writing was well done, and the story was interesting. However, that book was super racist. Like, it was really... Like, I'd be really into the story, and then they'd say a thing like, oh, and because he was a superior English white man. I'm like, what?
Well, and the thing
Like-
about that book is at least that was written in like,
In, like, the
1900s or like 1890s.
Yeah.
And so like that was
That was a
legit
long time ago.
product of the time. And that doesn't
Right.
make it more okay,
but
it makes it easier to grasp
right.
in your brain.
And yeah, it was very difficult, but like I was like, okay, but I guess
Like this was like 200 years ago.
right.
Okay.
Like you're gonna read stuff from this time frame. You're not gonna find anything different. You're not. So you have to just approach it the way that it was meant to be approached.
But a book that was written in the 1990s,
yeah,
it's kind of like, oh, I thought as a society we were at least starting to get to a point where we could do that differently.
yeah. And when I was reading Hyperion / listening to it, I thought it was at least 10 years older, which 1980 wouldn't be that much longer ago.
But it would have been like a little better.
But it would have been like a little better. And I was like, then I was like, oh shit. And I'm like,
But honestly, we could probably do a whole video about this and probably should.
oh, yeah. Okay,
So, moving on, I guess, because it's, you know, this could go on forever.
Yeah. You should probably do yours and I'll do my 2.
Okay. So the next several books I read, I guess I'll just do the next 4 as like a consecutive thing because they're all in a series. So I read the last 4 series of Unfortunate Events books.
Woo!
So I read The Slippery Slope,
Yeah, you did.
The Grim Grotto, The Penultimate Peril, and The End.
Haha.
So I had read the first 10 of these, so up until and through The Slippery Slope. I had read a long time ago, and a couple of them I had read more than once. The last 3 I had not finished. I had started one of them and just like hadn't, because by the time they were coming out, I was a little older and like I was reading other things and whatever. But this is definitely one of my 2 favorite series of all time, especially now like having finished it. I love these books. They are the best and I love them and they're wonderful. And
I just got the heebie-jeebies. Not because you were talking
no,
about it,
I'm
but just
sure
'cause.
not. Just because. But the timing's so convenient. They're great. Anybody who hasn't read them should read them. If you don't want to read them and you'd rather listen to them, other than, I think, 3 books in the middle, Tim Curry narrates all of the audiobooks. The only ones that he doesn't narrate are narrated by the author, which is still kind of legit, but Tim Curry does a better job, and even Lemony Snicket, a.k.a. Daniel Handler, who wrote these.
Nobody measures up to Tim Curry.
He knew that. He was just like, fuck, Tim Curry did a better job than me. Come back. Because they're in the middle. It's like books 3, 4, and 5 that Lemony Snicket narrates. And then afterwards he's just like, nah, Tim Curry was doing it right. He can do the rest of them. So, you know, keep that in mind. I've read the physical ones. I've listened to them. I love them all in every way. I finally watched season 1 of the TV show.
That's real good.
I have feelings about it, but most of them are positive. But so those were the next 4 that I read because I was just like got in a groove, you know, like you do. And then the next one after that I finished was also by Lemony Snicket. It was the first book in the prequel series to those, and it's called Who Could That Be at This Hour? And it's in his series called All the Wrong Questions. And it's about Lemony Snicket, the fictional character, who is the pen name, and his youth in, like, the secret organization VFD, which you learn about in the series of Unfortunate Events books. And it's just, like, kind of mystery spy stories. And it has a slightly different vibe than the series of Unfortunate Events. I still like it, but I got more into it at the end, and I'm kind of interested to see the way the rest of the series goes.
Okay.
Because it's a 4-book series.
Okay.
But these ones, I used this as a read harder prompt as well. I used it for my first book in a new to you YA or middle grade series. Because technically it is a different series, and it does have a different vibe. It's like not necessarily the same. Some of the characters are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you learn about some of the people you hear about in the series of unfortunate events. You learn about, like, their younger lives, and the organization is the same. So, like, in some ways the backdrop and, like, the world is the same, but, like, the story's totally different. And it just, like, the narrative style's a little different. It's a little more, like, goofy, I guess I would say.
Yep.
But we'll see. We'll see how the rest of the series goes. I have a box set, so I got it at Half Price Books because I'm really cool.
I was there that time, wasn't I?
You were.
Yeah.
You were.
All right.
I was just like, this is the same. It's more a series of unfortunate events like World, and I knew the series was different, but I was just like, I have to know because I love those. I love the series of unfortunate events so much that I will read anything related to it in any way, pretty much. All right, and then the last book I read, I also used for a Read Harder prompt. I used it for read a book of social science. And I read, well, actually I listened to, because audiobooks, I listened to You Can't Touch My Hair and Other Things I Still Have to Explain by Phoebe Robinson, who is a comedian who also co-hosts the podcast Two Dope Queens, which is like the #1 podcast on iTunes, I think, right now. And, so she takes an approach to, like, race and gender issues, as well as, like, being a female breaking into a male-dominated industry. She takes it on in, like, a funny way and kind of breaks down, like, reasons why certain things you don't realize are racist are, in fact, racist. And, like, also just kind of talks about, like, her life as somebody who's dealing with, like, 2 different kinds of, like, marginalization. And it's pretty interesting. I liked it a lot. She narrated the audiobook herself, which was kind of cool because, like, you know how a lot of times with, like, memoirs of people who are, like, famous or whatever, they'll write it in, like, kind of the style that they talk. But when you read it, you don't always read it in that way. Mm-hmm. Like, you kind of... But it was nice to kind of hear how she intended it to be heard. So you, like, knew when it was a joke and when it wasn't. And
most of my celebrity memoirs, I've listened to the audiobooks. And they've all been narrated by the author.
A lot of them are, and I appreciate that because it honestly makes them really great to listen to. But that one I really liked. It makes you think about a lot of things. It gave me some perspective on some stuff that I wouldn't have thought about because I am, like, a white woman who doesn't necessarily have to think about some of those things all the time.
And, like, we both consider ourselves allies. Like, we are about... gender issues, we're about race issues, we're about, like, LGBTQ plus issues, but we're still straight white women. Like, we can't relate to everything, so, like, we're always looking to learn more and understand further.
And if I can learn something that, like, if I hear another white person say something that I wouldn't have necessarily picked up on before.
Right.
That I can now be like, hey, you're being kind of a dick and here's why.
Right.
That helps me to be a better ally. And so I'm glad for that experience. And I'm glad that, like, she as a person, a woman of color with a bit more reach socially was putting that out there so that other people who maybe didn't know could now be better.
Nice.
I think that's good.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about that one now.
It's a good one. You'd probably like it.
Right
on. Yeah. But yeah, that's my last one, so.
Okay. So, my last 2, the next book that I finished this year was We've Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson.
I'm planning on reading that one this year.
I hadn't even heard of it. I'd read her short story, The Lottery, which if you haven't read in school, then, you know, whatever, but I did. And I was just like, whew, okay. You know, I learned about foreshadowing and, you know, not following your expectations, anticipation, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Details. So, yeah, literary devices and such. But, I was at our friend Kyle's house, and he was just like, somehow books and her came up, and he was like, oh shit, and he just, like, put the book in front of somebody next to me and was like, read the first paragraph, and they were like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting, and I was like, swipe, and I just, like, read the first paragraph too, I was like, oh shit. I was like, can I borrow this? Like right now? And he's like, yeah. And so I borrowed it. And then I read it.
I was like eternally loaning out books. Always, all the time.
Yes. Like, you borrowed Hyperion from him.
I did.
I would have, but I just listened to the audiobook for it. Like, exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
I
also listened to part of the audiobook for it, because I would have probably taken a million years to get through it if I hadn't.
I like it because I can spend my credits, and then I have a lot of content to listen to when I'm at work.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But yeah, so I read that. I borrowed it from Kyle, and it was awesome. It's just awesome. I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to give too much away, because Sam's planning on reading it soon. But
I have the audiobook. It's sitting there waiting. But I've got a couple other ones that I'm like, which one do I want to do first?
And it's got to be whatever you're in the mood for. I get
trying to
it.
decide if I want to do another nonfiction or if I want to do that one. Because if I want to do another nonfiction, I'm going to do that Trevor Noah one. I'm just trying to decide. And they're like about the same length. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. It was really awesome. And I know that the person that narrates it was something that I listened to. I think she narrated Wild.
I've seen like reviews of narrator, because you can look that stuff up on Audible, and
it
seems like she has good reviews. So
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I almost would have
I've listened to bad narrators, and then it's really bad. But but they can ruin a good book. But
I just stop, and then I'm like, nope. And then I return the book, and I get my credit back, and then I spend it on something else.
honestly, aside from the series of unfortunate events, which are 100% Tim Curry, except the first one, which is full cast, Dracula's probably my favorite.
Oh, I listened to that on like double time.
You did. You should listen to it at regular speed and give it the appreciation it deserves, because it was so fucking good.
I might do that soon, because I'm gonna run up. Well, not soon, but like in the next.
And that was
weeks.
one of the first ones you listened to, so it's like been a while.
I think that was actually my first audiobook.
It was the first one I listened to all the way through.
Oh, nice.
It's so good.
It's really good.
It's a really good book, just in general, but also like that cast.
That was a good cast.
It's so good.
I think Jonathan was my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the lady who narrates Mina is like a multiple time like Audie award winner for like audiobook narration. She has over 200 titles on Audible.
Holy shit. So anyway, We've Always Lived in a Castle is fantastic. It is very short. You could get through it in one setting if you wanted to, if you were dedicated. It's really good. I recommend it. Do it. It's awesome. I can't tell you more because I don't want to spoil it for Sam.
We'll get there soon.
The other book that I listened to as an audiobook was Dragonfly and Amber, which is the second Outlander book.
So by Diana Gabaldon.
By Diana Gabaldon. And that book did not take place in Scotland like I wanted it to. I mean, part of it did, but a lot of it took place in France, which I just don't give enough of a shit about.
It's like a minor shit, but like not a real shit.
Right,
know?
like if I'm in the mood for French shit, I'll find French shit. I didn't listen to these books.
Like I wanted to listen to these for some Scottish shit.
Yeah, I didn't listen to it for Scottish shit in France.
Yeah, I haven't decided if I want to finish that series. Right now I'm just sitting tight at one.
Yeah.
Because one ended definitively
really
enough that I was just like, I can pretend this is the only book. If I do the second one, I have to at least read the third, and then it's like, I don't know if the third ends well enough for me to be like, okay, I can stop at 3. Because that's me with series. It's like, I have to either read the whole thing, or I have to like stop after the first one, or find like a good stopping point.
I'm like 2/3 of the way through the third one, and I will let you know how that goes.
Please do, because then it's like, maybe I'll invest in 3, but I just don't think I can invest in like the 8 that there are.
Well, I have all the physical copies.
I know
so,
you do.
You know.
And I have the audiobook for the second one. I have it, but I just like...
Why?
Because I was going to do it with you and Stephanie.
Oh, that's right. She DNF'd it so fast.
And I just was like, oh, I got the audiobook, and I just like didn't even start it because I just like don't know if I want to. Because like I like the first one.
The first one's really good.
But
that's still my favorite.
They're really long books.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of shit that I want to read.
Yes.
So,
Also, I think, are we still doing Genji this year?
yup.
Yeah.
So, I got a lot of shit to read.
Yep. Yep. So I enjoyed it. I did not enjoy it as much as the first one. I am enjoying the third one a lot more because it's a little more timey-wimey, and you all know that's my jam.
It is her jam.
The second
It's her
one's-
jam with bread.
The second one's not super timey-wimey or interesting. So
It's like, it happened.
yeah, I'm just like, okay, so now I know what happened after the shit in the first book, but like, whatever.
Like, nobody gives a shit about that.
Right.
They could have probably skipped it and been like, so much time later, and you'd have been like, oh, now we're here. Okay, we cool.
There's some interesting stuff, and it's framed a little differently. Not a ton differently, but a little differently. And so that's, fine, whatever. But I just wasn't as about it. And so far, the third book I am enjoying significantly more than the second book.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know how that goes. Because
Yes.
if I can do 3, then I can do 3. I can commit to 3.
Right. And then we can, do full reviews or whatever. So,
right. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But,
But yeah, so that's what I've done so far this year is those 3.
Hey, 3 is good for, your goal. So...
Yeah.
And, 2 of them are pretty long. The
were
Outlander
really
one is especially
fucking long.
The Hyperion one is, a little shorter, but it takes 1 million years to get through.
I don't remember how long Hyperion was as an audiobook, but
I believe it was 23.
Okay, the second Hyperion book was almost. It was a couple seconds / minutes short of being 39 hours long.
Yeah. Hyperion is shorter than the Outlander ones, but it's also, it's
Not short.
Not short. But yeah, so that is our January.
Wrap up.
10. And we got through 3. We talked about a bunch of shit in between.
Yes, we did.
This is a really long wrap-up video.
Yes, it is.
But that's fine. Y'all are going to see the whole thing anyway, because I think everything we said is,
It's pretty legit.
So.
And we're pretty drunk. Because, I said, 5 bottles of wine. Whatever.
Yeah, 4.2. But.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But yeah, so we're gonna see you guys next week, I guess, right? We'll see you guys then.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.